violence. I suppose colloquially we just think of sexual violence as rape. It is a man in a dirty coat down an alley grabbing a woman late at night. Would that be what you guys tend to think that society at large thinks is rape? Pretty fair assessment? Yeah. Okay, well this is actually the definition from Rape Crisis Scotland. And what I think is important here is the actual focus on consent. Sex requires consent. Without consent, it isn't sex. So what is it? It's actually a crime of power. It is another individual taking power from somebody else and using sex as a weapon. This definition of sexual violence means that in nowhere at all in this event was lust or sexual desire an important part. It's about power. It's about taking something away from an individual. It's about attacking their identity. It's about attacking who they are. And sex was just used as a weapon. You could have used anything else, but sex places it in this context as sexual violence. That's not really included in the legal definition. The legal definition, at least in the UK, tends to be male on female penetration with a penis. Nothing else. That is ignoring a large group of survivors. That is ignoring women who have been violated by women. That is ignoring men that have been violated by women. And that is ignoring people that did not experience full penetrative rape. Is that really fair? Do you guys think that's fair? Do you think that sexual violence should be graded on a scale of severity, as it often is in the case of courts? That unless it was a stranger who was violently assaulting you, your experience isn't that important, your experience isn't that valid. Is that something we agree with? No. But is that something that society at large tends to perpetuate? That's something we're going to be talking about. So yeah, and throughout the context of this talk, I'm going to use the word survivor. Victim is when the crime is taking place, when someone is violating you. But survivors, they live through it. They're no longer under the control of the attacker. So they survived it, and it's down to their skills, whatever they did in the event, to actually take them through. So using the word survivor recognises they are no longer a victim and they no longer have their power taken from them. So it's more an empowering thing to use the word survivor. So that's why I choose to use it, and why a lot of people in this field will use it. So this is just me explaining at the beginning of the talk all the terms that I will be using throughout the talk. We all okay? Well, at the same level? Great. Let's move on. Okay, so sexual violence in popular culture. As we all know, Ian Watkins was just recently prosecuted for a really horrendous string of acts. And I'm not really going to talk about them right now. But thanks to the Met and all their hard work, he's going to be prosecuted. And he's going to be successfully prosecuted. And he's going to be put away for years. Because we as a society, we hate those acts. We don't like people who do them. You know, we punish them with the full extent of the law, don't we? Roman Polanski. Well known that he committed statutory rape. That we as a society believe that children cannot consent to sexual acts with people above age, above their age bracket. But how many actors and movie makers have actually come out in support of him and signed letters and said that he should be released? Is he actually facing justice? Is he being punished? What are we as a society saying to the woman that experienced that act? What are we telling her? What are we telling her that she deserves? What's her worth? Mike Tyson, he was actually put away for his act. And what did he do when he came out? He then had an extremely successful cameo in The Hangover. How do you think that woman feels? Seeing her attacker plastered everywhere, everyone laughing at him, going, oh, isn't that great? Oh, that was hilarious. Mike Tyson, oh, brilliant cameo in The Hangover. What's that telling her? What's that telling her about what happened to her? Julian Assange. Now, in my time as a student, WikiLeaks has been very topical. I remember in first year, it would be in the student newspaper in halls, and we'd all be talking about it, everyone's opinions on it. And what came up time and time again was that the woman, the reason that he was going to be extradited to Sweden for raping a woman in her sleep was because she had made it up, because the Swedish government had asked her to do so that he could be extradited to the US to face crimes for leaking information. That is what the bright minds of the future think. That a woman agreed to go through the hassle, the trauma, the stress of a trial because her government asked to do it so that he could face prosecution in another country for another crime. And who's coming out and saying he's wrong? Who's coming out and saying he's right? George Galloway. It's just bad sexual etiquette, am I right? And lastly, Ched Evans. Not all of you might know him. He was a footballer who was prosecuted for rape. And actually what happened to him and his victim, he actually has a really large following campaigning for his appeal. To the point where the woman was hounded. She has had to change her name and leave the country due to details of her personal information being leaked onto the internet, saying that she was just doing this for the money. His girlfriend, who is actually leading this campaign, saying that on this website, this is a screenshot from the website for his appeal, there are things relating to her personal character, saying that they've received information that, about her sexual history. Interestingly, it was only in the 90s actually that it was outlawed that you could use someone's sexual history as evidence for the defense. And you were still allowed to attack somebody's character, attack the survivor's character in the court as evidence. That can be part of the defense's case. So yeah. But is it really a serious problem? You might think I'm talking about really extreme cases here, and that actually in reality we don't all do that as a society. If we knew someone that was a rapist or if someone had been raped, we would all generally be like, no, that's bad, you're a horrible person, I'm going to be there for the survivor. Is that what everybody thinks? Well actually, 1 in 4 women are survivors of sexual violence in their lifetime. And in a study published by The Lancet 3 weeks ago, which is done every 15 years, and what it is to survey people's sexual attitudes in the country, 1 in 10 women have been forced to have sex against their will in the country, compared to 1 in 70 men. It is a very, very gendered issue, which is something I'll get into later. But also, in Scotland, 3 rapes are reported every single day. And rape statistics are notoriously hard to get accurate. These are all estimates. Because how can you go around? Do you go around and do a census and it's like at the bottom of the question, have you been a victim of sexual violence? Are you a survivor? Yes or no, tick the box. Who's going to do that? These are all estimates. But the fact that 3 rapes alone are reported every day, and reporting rape, it's something like 70 to 90% of attacks of sexual violence are not reported. They're not reported to the police. So you're talking about 10 to 30%. 3 rapes every day. And this one actually really freaked me out because it's showing how we're telling girls at a young age what their worth is. What are we telling them is okay in a relationship? What are we as a society saying is okay in sex and relationships and love? What are we saying? If 1 in 3 teenage girls experience an unwanted sexual act, and that's just part of their everyday life, that's just part of growing up, what are we telling them as a society? What is our responsibility in all of this? And of course, this year it was found that 80,000 women are raped every single year in the UK. To me, this shows this is a massive problem. This is a massive problem that we do not talk about enough, that we do not acknowledge enough, that we are not trying to stop. So, what actually happens after an attack of sexual violence? To most, the idea of a rape is, as we said earlier, a man in a jacket grabbing a woman as she's walking home at night. It's horrible, and then she picks herself up, dusts herself off, and goes home. Is that all sexual violence is? Or is there more to it? In many studies that have been done into actually what is a massive indicator of PTSD. Interpersonal violence is the highest indicator, and of that, sexual violence is the highest indicator of developing chronic PTSD. And what is post-traumatic stress disorder? I mean, we all hear about it, about combat veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and getting freaked out in petrol stations and shooting people. But what does that actually mean for people on a day-to-day basis? It means hypervigilance. It means you go into a state of shock where you think you are okay and you go about your everyday life as if nothing has happened. And you internalize it and you just keep moving on. Until you reach a point of crisis when it all comes flooding back to you, when all you see are images in your head of what happened to you. And it's all you can think about. And you're getting nightmares, you're waking up in the middle of the night, you get flash memories where your skin remembers exactly what happened to you. And the thing is with sexual violence, our brains are fantastic at blocking things out. This is something I study in my degree. We are amazing at just going, nope, not remembering that. We are putting that out of our head. So our brain does that to us. But for many survivors, that means you can never fully recover what happened to you. Which means you are just left with the emotional and psychological scars of getting on with your day-to-day life. So you're hypervigilant. You feel out of control. Survivors of sexual violence are 3 times as likely to develop an eating disorder because they are trying to regain control. Eating disorders are not about wanting to be thin or about just really liking food so you binge on it. Eating disorders are about feeling out of control and trying to regain that in your life. PTSD also means that you go through bouts of depression and also substance misuse. So you're asking survivors of sexual violence to deal with all this on a day-to-day basis. But are we actually giving them the space to do that in society? And what's coming up next is a video that was actually based on, you know, that popular meme, shit, something people say, a group of people say. Now, I find the following video, and I've shown it to a few friends, I find it quite funny and quite liberating in that it's from a sympathetic and empathic point of view towards survivors and recognising the things they have to lie about that society will not let them acknowledge and not let them deal with. But I can understand we're not a monolithic group of people. Everyone might see this differently. So I'm sorry if what's coming up might actually be quite upsetting and might make people angry, and if it's too much I can stop it and we can move on. But to me it's just a light-hearted way of showing how survivors actually have to deal with things on a day-to-day basis. they're all things that are natural, a natural consequence of having to go through a really horrible event like that. And it might seem ridiculous that she's up there lying about it, when naturally, if you go through an event like that, these are all things that happen to you. But is this what we're telling survivors? That they have to do this? Or are we actually giving them space to go through this and actually heal properly? Because let's think about it. What does survivors face after the event? They could prosecute. They could go to the police and report it. And then you have to go to a trial. Then you possibly have a physical examination to get evidence. But in the case of most reports, it's actually historical, which means anywhere from upwards 18 months and after they can report it, due to your brain naturally repressing memories. Totally natural. So if you're going through a historical trial, what is your evidence? I suppose you could talk to counsellors, you could talk to the family members, use all of that. What's his basis? What's their basis? They can attack your character. They can bring up your sexual history. If you were under the influence of drugs or alcohol, does it count? What were you wearing that night? I'm sure everyone in this room remembers the really fantastic ad from Rape Crisis Scotland, which was where a woman was shopping for an outfit, and the sales assistant is like, how can I help you? And the girl's like, I really want an outfit where I can get raped tonight. Of course it's ridiculous, but how often is that actually used in the media as a way to discredit a survivor? So she or he may not want to go through a trial. They just turn to their friends and family for support. Well, actually 90% of perpetrators were known to the survivor. This could be a family friend. This could be someone in your family. How are you then going to turn to your family and your friends and say, this happened to me, if you are scared of the repercussions? Remember, this is a crime of power. You don't feel you have any power left. How are you going to then go and ask for what you need? And disclosure. This is another thing. One of the biggest reasons for long-running PTSD and chronic PTSD, and also refusal by the victim not to go seeking from support services, is due to negative social relations upon disclosure. This means that when you tell someone what happened to you, it's a case of, are you sure? Did that really happen to you? Maybe you're just making it up. I think you're just making it up. I mean, he's a really nice person. You shouldn't go around saying things like that. What if that ruins his life? If this is all something going on in the survivor's head, where are they going to find the space to heal, to get help? And also society. What are we saying? I keep coming back to this because I feel we have a massive responsibility on us as a society to help and stop this problem and help the survivors. But what are we doing? What are we saying to them? I think this is what we're saying to them. There's some people who might call me completely extreme and that I just have feminist glasses on and this is what I think. But to me, this is what the evidence says. As I've already shown, sexual violence is a hugely gendered crime. But not only does it mean that women are more at risk of sexual violence, it means transgender women. They are the group most at risk of sexual violence because they are not viewed as proper women and so they must be attacked. Or corrective rape is used in a lot of countries for gay women, where it's viewed that if you give this to them, then they will be cured. They will be cured of whatever they have in their head. So, thinking about this, that sexual violence is a gendered crime, and anyone who is not a cis male is at a disadvantage. How do women live their lives? Right, I'm 21 years old. When I go on a night out, or when I used to go on a night out because I refuse these rules anymore, what did I do? I get ready with the girls. I'd ask them, does this look slutty tonight? You know, can I wear tights with this, or should I wear tights with this? I don't know. So I'm going out. I feel okay. I feel happy. I go to the club. Some guy grabs my ass. I feel upset. My male friends tell me to tough it up. I go to the bathroom. I can't go alone. What if someone comes after me? I have to go with my female friends. If a guy is talking to me, I have to be careful if he's too friendly to me, because that might be bad. But at the same time, I have to keep a cautious eye out if any man's going to be violent against me. And then I go home. I can't get in a taxi home alone, because all girls know what happens then if they get a taxi home alone. I can't walk home. God no, that's the worst. Why is this running through my head? Why is this running through all women's heads? Why is the threat of violence used to monitor and curtail women's activity at all times? Why is this something that I had to learn, that all women had to learn growing up? You have to be careful of men. You cannot be alone at all times. You have to make sure you're out at the right times. You can't do this, you can't do that. Don't get too drunk. Why are we doing that? Why, when there was a rapist out in town, were women given a curfew and it wasn't, oh, it's a male rapist, all men stay inside. That way we can definitely catch the bugger. Why were women made stay inside? Why, when a woman went to a police station in Canada, was she told that her rape wasn't proper because she was wearing a short skirt? Why are we saying this? Why aren't we angrier? Why aren't we telling these people to shut the hell up? Why does a national news company in the States say, oh, it's an almighty shame that those boys' lives are ruined? Why are we okay with that? I'm not okay with that. I can see most of you in the room, if not all, aren't okay with that. So why are we as a society going, this is wrong, we need to put the survivors' lives first? So, can we agree? This is something we are doing. Does anyone think I am completely out of the loop and just making something up entirely? Or are we all on the basis that this is something that's happening, this is very real? And that even by not acting against it, we are perpetuating it? So, how do we view rape and sexual violence in society? Can anyone think from popular culture and books, like what happens?
Person goes crying afterwards.
Okay, so it's distraught. Person's distraught. Okay. Right, naturally. Because due to PTSD, you go into shock. You're like, right, just gotta get on with things. But the person's distraught, the person's crying. Anyone watch Game of Thrones? No. Okay, great. Lara Croft. Right, Lara Croft. Strong female character, goes off, does her own thing, completely counteracts all what I said to you previously about what society teaches women to do. She goes off hunting in all these mighty tombs. But then they released the prelude to all the Lara Croft Tomb Raider series this year, and what happened? Oh, she's strong because she was a survivor of sexual violence. She was a sword forged in flame, as it were. That's the only reason. Time and time again, sexual violence is used as a trope, as a literary device, to either make a male character want to get justice for a close female friend or relative, or it then turns into a revenge film. Like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is a film I really love, and I really love the books, and they're really interesting, but it just gets really tiresome that no one's thinking, hey, do you know what, maybe I'll actually write a book about how tough it is being a survivor and what they have to face, without going, okay, 2 pages, she's upset, and now she goes and murders everybody else who ever harmed her. So, how do we view rape in society, and how do we make this rape culture? Well, in the centre, this is what to me rape culture means. That sexual violence is an inevitable event in a woman's life that she must accept and take responsibility for if it happens. Now granted, yeah, it's a terrible thing, we're all very sad for you, but why are you still upset? It's been 8 months, like, kill him for it. Or, he's a nice guy, don't ruin his life. That this is something that just happens, and that is everywhere, like Game of Thrones. A major criticism is there's so many rapes in the book, and I mean, I love the books again, you can still like something and critique it, but there is a lot of sexual violence in that book, and there's a lot of sexual violence in the TV show. But it's, oh, that's just medieval England. It's just based on medieval England. There are dragons in this story. Why are we subscribing to fact here? Like, really, come on. So, what makes up this idea, this culture? Well, a part of it is desensitized sexual attitudes. Now, this might be a bit like, where am I getting this from? What do I mean by this? That we should all go back to purity and no sex before marriage and anything outside of that is wrong? No, I don't agree with that. But by desensitized sexual attitudes, I mean the idea that sex workers can never be raped. That is what I mean. That we have a very polarized view of sex still present in society. And that things such as grabbing a woman on a night out, leering at her, invading her personal space are okay as long as you want to get your role. Hypermasculinity. A lot of people would know this as lad culture. The idea that it's great to make a rape joke, that's funny. You know, just get with it, get over it. Or it's fine to leer at women, or it's fine to talk about them as if they're objects, because we're men, we're real men. To actually treat women as people is gay. Yeah. So, to me, these are two things that contribute, but also, what to me is really important, is the denigration of women. This is where we objectify women, where we treat them as vessels. Vessels that are being taken by men for their pleasure. I know this all seems really ridiculous to some of you, and I get that. When I first started reading about this, I'm like, no, they're just completely blowing this up. Like, people don't actually do this on a daily basis. I know rapists are bad. They don't, like, that doesn't happen. But, okay, stick with me here, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. And lastly, what also contributes is just plain good old-fashioned sexism, which I won't need to explain. But where does that happen? Where do we see it? Where do we see all these things coming together? I mean, only in the case of like Ian Watkins, which is really extreme, surely. This was an incredibly popular ad campaign by Dolce & Gabbana. Now, what do you see here? What do people see?
Porn film.
A porn film, okay. Is she enjoying it? Does she look like she's into it? No. Well, what are they doing? Why are they involved? Put yourself in that woman's shoes. Let's just say, for argument's sake, this is really happening and it's not just an ad. How do you think this woman feels right now, being held on the ground and having three men around her looking at her?
I'll just say something. It just struck me. I was watching the video for Enrique Iglesias, the hero video, where the woman's kind of got the white dress on, and you know, it's kind of all open in front. She's held back by three men. Her boyfriend is dramatically stabbed to this supposedly romantic music. And this kind of looks like the stylized follow-on. The boyfriend is stabbed and she's pinned to the ground. And there is a sort of graphic image of violence within it, but it's, you know, it's like hero kind of, it kind of tails off, or you know, Enrique Iglesias' character in the video is stabbed, just misogynistic enough to a love song. But what happens to her next? And it's that sublimated image of what happens next to her that is completely and truly really unhealthy.
But it's still a really popular song. This is a really popular album, like you're saying.
But it's that sublimation of, oh, she's going to be rich, this is fun, this is romantic, this is wonderful.
Yeah.
And I kind of look on Enrique Iglesias differently for producing that video because of that.
Yeah. And that's really interesting because it's not just him who does it. And I'm sure if we actually sat him down and we were like, why'd you do that? I didn't like that. He'd be like, oh, but it's, you know, this happens, that. This is everywhere. Once you start seeing this, it doesn't stop. And you get really angry. I mean, why on earth is this okay? Why on earth when that happens?
What about Miley Cyrus?
Oh,
There's a classic picture of her screwing herself with a hammer. You know, I mean, what do you think she's telling everybody when she's actually screwing herself with a hammer? I mean, she's doing that, that's her own choice. To make that image. She says everybody whirl around that is her choice.
I think that's a case of we are telling women that their worth is their sex. And that she thinks in order to be successful, in order to break away from what she had, she's a grown woman now. Her worth is her sex, which is down to the denigration of women.
So it's a message for men and women, really. It can't just be just for men. It's a message for everyone.
And that we as a society need to be back. But I do think it is gendered. And by this I don't mean that all men and that you're all being taught from birth like to go out and hate women. No. I think we're teaching everybody, men and women, that this is acceptable and that this is the norm and this is the cultural norm. And that it is extreme and it's out of sight and then it's hidden. And then it only happens once in a while, but as I showed you with the stats, this isn't just once in a while. This is consistent. So why is it okay to have that threat of violence? And like, this is the thing, to me, most men I know are really not okay with violence against women, and there's fantastic projects such as the White Ribbon Project, which is men